Aloha and welcome to this screencast on issue-driven project management. The objectives are to help you understand that project management is really super hard and that I'm going to show you what is really a very, very simple approach to project management, which is nonetheless like fairly complicated. But I think is probably the simplest approach I can think of that will actually provide enough rigor for you to really assess whether or not you're managing the project correctly or not. The reason why software project management is so darn difficult is that it is so contextual. It depends upon how big your team is and what the project's like and what the personalities are and what the customers want and what it is you're actually building. And so you can read books about project management and I think they're probably fairly helpful, but at the end of the day, you really just have to do it for a while and learn as you go. So here's my view of what an absolute beginner at project management should be able to do, and this hopefully will seem totally like common sense to you. First, okay, there's something for you to work on. Secondly, you know what it is you want to work on. Third, when you finish one thing, you know what to do next. Fourth, you're rarely waiting for somebody else to finish what they're doing in order for you to make progress. Fifth, once you actually finish something, the project's closer to actually being completed. Sixth, you know what's happening in the project at all times. And finally, when something isn't working correctly, in other words, when any of those prior conditions are not met, you figure it out quickly so that you can fix it. Okay? That, to me, seems like completely common sense, but is actually fairly difficult to achieve in practice. Okay? However, I have achieved it in practice, and I've defined this method that I call issue-driven project management. It relies heavily upon GitHub issues, GitHub milestones, and GitHub projects, and if you follow it, you're basically going to satisfy all of those goals. Okay? So here are the rules. Divide the work up into tasks. Every single task takes no longer than 3 days. So if you've got a task that takes longer than 3 days, you've got to decompose it into something smaller. You represent each of those tasks by a GitHub issue. Each issue gets assigned to a single person in your group. You organize the issues into milestones. Milestones have a due date, and at all times, every person has at least one issue that they're working on. There it is in a nutshell. Not very hard. So here's an example of an issue list for an example project, in this case, Watt Depot. And that's how you're going to represent the tasks that you have to do in your group. Each of these issues you assign to someone. You don't necessarily have to assign every single task forever, but at least for the current week of work or the upcoming week, you figure out which tasks you're going to work on and you assign it to somebody. And the way that you organize your set of 50 or 100 issues or whatever it is by milestones. So you create a milestone. This represents the upcoming week to 10 days of work, and you put the issues, you assign an issue to that milestone when you intend to accomplish that task within the next week. And then once you've got this set of 10 issues or 5 issues or 6 issues or however many issues you want to accomplish during the next week, you use this GitHub project mechanism with 3 columns: backlog, in progress, and done. And that is the way you see, hey, which issues are actually being worked on, which issues are done, which issues have we not started yet. Okay? So, milestones, partition the project into phases. They have an end date. You're only working on one milestone at a time, and you should only work on the issues associated with the particular milestone. Okay? Okay, here's this is one of the more problematic things to actually accomplish, but if you do it, it really, really helps, and that is to make sure that when you're working on the project, it's actually, the work is actually associated with an issue that exists, okay? And what that means is that if you're working on an issue and you make that issue a separate branch, or even if not, you should be able to with every commit, specify the issue that the code changes in that commit are associated with. So you can put the issue number somewhere in your commit message to do it. Now it turns out there's always going to be some small things that are too small to warrant an issue but need to be done. Okay, and so I say 20% of your commits cannot have an issue associated with them because they're the small task. But if you're getting to 40% or 50% of your commits aren't associated with the issues in your milestone, then you're probably not specifying your issues very well, because that's a lot of work that's not being accommodated by the issues. All right, to do this, for simple projects, again, as a beginner in project management, I do not recommend you try to specify the entire project in advance. You end up writing a lot of stuff that doesn't mean anything. So just create a very rough set of milestones to make sure, over the course of the month or the 2 months, that you actually, plan to get to the goal line. But you only plan in detail the next week to 10 days, okay? And in order to do that effectively, you have to meet at least twice a week, okay? If you meet twice a week and you're always planning for the next 7 to 10 days, then you've always got, something evolving that helps you make progress towards the ultimate goal and enables you to capture problems with project management when they actually occur. Okay, so issue-driven project management, it satisfies these common sense characteristics of good project management, because there's always a task for you to work on. You know what you're supposed to work on. When you're done with it, when you finish one task, you know what to do next. You should be rarely blocked waiting for someone else to complete the task. Completing a task brings the project closer to completion. You can go look at the milestone in the project page in GitHub and see what people are doing. And then if you notice that someone doesn't have anything to work on, or someone who is waiting for somebody else, or someone who's just not completing their tasks, you can see that pretty quickly. Okay? So how we do this in practice, we're going to figure out what our tasks are, define them as issues, then define a milestone to aggregate those issues together, attach the issues to the milestone, and then create a project to manage work on it. So let's just try to do that right now so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to this project called RadGrad, and you can see we've got some projects, and actually we have some milestones and stuff, and I've got a bunch of open issues. But you can see, here's an issue here, and there's a little bit of specification of what it is, and we can go back, and here's an issue here, and there's the specification of what it is, and that to me is kind of a standard amount of detail for an issue. 4 or 5 bullet points is probably enough to make sure people understand what they're doing. So in your case, you're going to want to define some issues, and I've got some issues already defined, because that takes a while. So what's the next thing we do? The next thing we do is we create a milestone. So let's call ours M3. This is just sample one. I'm going to delete it later, and we'll have some simple description like complete mock-up development. Let's say that's the goal for this. And we have a due date of Thursday, the 28th of October. So we create the milestone. And now we have to associate issues with the milestone. So we're going to go back to our issues. And we're going to say this one should be in milestone 3. And this one should be in milestone 3. We'll do 4. Student homepage, we'll put that one in milestone 3. And again, in your group, this is where your group kind of negotiates about, well, what are the most important issues and that should be in this milestone? And I'm not going to do that now. You figure that out, right? But at the end of the day, you got this milestone. It's got 4 issues in it. Let's pretend there's 2 people in our group. So that means for the next week or so, there's 2 people, and they should each accomplish 2 issues. Okay, so let's go through that. Let's say mock-up degree planner page. I'm going to assign myself to that one. And let me go to milestone 3 so we can see this. So now my little face is there, and we'll make this one, let's make that Amy's task. And then we'll go back and we'll say that'll be my task. And the app body header, that's going to be Amy's task. So there's just Amy and me working on this project for whatever reason. And now we each have our own task. Okay, so we've created a milestone. We've figured out what issues we want to accomplish during that milestone. We've assigned ownership of those issues. The next thing we want to do is create a project. We create a project with the same name as the milestone. So, and the description for this is pretty generic: manage work on milestone M3. So we save our project, and now we're always going to create 3 columns called backlog, called in progress, and called done. Okay. There could be another column like called review. There's you can have a more complicated process, but we're going to keep real simple. And now we're going to add cards, and we're going to add the 3 cards associated with this milestone, right? So we defined 4 issues, and so here they are. Okay, and then we can close this, and now we're basically done. Okay, we've got the issues that we're going to work on for the next week. There happen to be 4 because there's 2. We have a team of 2. Each person has 2 issues, and we've figured out who's assigned to which issue, and we've also can note immediately by looking at this that nobody's doing any work right now. Okay, so maybe what we have in our meeting, Amy and I get together, and I say to Amy, okay, listen, the first thing I'm going to work on is this mock-up student mentor space page, so that I'm going to put that in the in progress because that's what I'm focusing on right now. I'm not focusing on the student degree planner. Similarly, maybe Amy says, okay, I'm going to start by working on the mock-up student homepage. Now, our project represents the fact that here are the 2 issues we're specifically working on, and once we get done with those, let's say I got done, I did the commit, whatever, I'd move this to the done phase, and then I'd find my next issue and I'd move that into the in progress phase to represent that I'm starting on that. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. We've got milestones, we've got issues, we've got projects, and if we define our issues correctly, follow this issue-driven project management process, meet a couple times a week, you should be able to make excellent progress on your projects.